Gervonta Tank Davis claims that Shakur Stevenson in his most recent fight, obviously he didn't look good, but Gervonta Davis is saying that Shakur was faking an injury after the fact. You know, obviously he didn't have the best performance against Edwin De Los Santos. That was his most recent opponent, and he got criticized for it. And, you know, just looking back at it, he said that, you know, Tank said that Shakur's hand looked fine to him. There's just so much going on in the boxing world. Everyone's going at each other. I understand there's a level of competition that, you know, you have to stir up the pot if you want to make potential fights happen, and nowadays the trend is to kind of call each other out on social media. I understand all that, but yeah, it's heating up between Shakur Stevenson and Tank Davis. Maybe this is the fight that we get, you know, next, instead of you know, a Devin Haney fight at 140 for either guy. You know, after assuming that Devin beats Ryan Garcia, we'll see Shakur and Tank go at it at 35. Maybe that's their last fights at 35 before moving up to 140. I wouldn't be mad at that. I always say that those two need to fight each other, especially if neither of them can really get a Vasily Lomachenko fight, because at the end of the day, it's about making big fights happen. You fight like a young prospect like Frank Martin. Okay, you know, within the boxing world, we'll respect it, but if it's not Vasily Lomachenko, I don't see these fighters getting much credit for any of their opponents. They probably say they're too green, whatever the case may be. Even go up to 140, you know, if Tank wants to give Isaac Cruz a rematch, if Shakur wants to give Isaac Cruz a shot, even though, you know, Cruz is technically a champ now, so, you know, Shakur would be going up and, you know, asking Cruz for a fight probably. But those are fights that, you know, were tried to be negotiated in the past, but they haven't, you know, come to fruition. But for Tank to be saying that Shakur kind of faked his injury, because he's saying on social media, Tank is saying the hand looked fine to me, like watching back the De Los Santos fight. Yeah, so Tank is just going at Shakur Stevenson, just saying like he has no pop, and obviously they sparred, and Tank is just bringing up the fact that, you know, he easily handled guys like Devin, guys like Shakur, like it was no problem, and that he would definitely handle them now that, you know, they're at the pro level, and Tank's a grown man, Shakur is a grown man, but still Tank feels like he's just on another level. They can't mess with him. And I would argue, you know, Tank's probably my main pick at 35 and 40. I think, you know, his boxing ability is slept on. You know, a lot of people say Tank can't box, he's just a brawler. I think you guys may think that because every opponent, you know, he goes in there and knocks them out. He stops all of his opponents except Isaac Cruz. That was an exception. And ironically and coincidentally, you know, he had a hurt hand as well. So I'm sure Tank can kind of relate to Shakur, but on the flip side, Tank is calling out Shakur for kind of you know, just saying he doesn't believe it. Tank doesn't believe that Shakur was actually hurt. He just thinks he got in there with someone who could crack, and Shakur ran away from him. That's what Tank is saying. So I respect Tank for saying this. I think he's trying to make a big fight happen with Shakur, and that's a fight that I've really been calling for. Honestly, for Tank, I've been saying that Vasily Lomachenko is the end-all be-all at 35 in terms of a big fight for Tank, because I don't see him getting much credit for any other opponent, you know, with the exception of Shakur Stevenson. Obviously, we're talking about the potential of that fight going down, but I just don't think there's much of a big fight with anybody else besides Loma and Shakur if you're Tank. And I know Tank wants to get Lomachenko, he wants to get Shakur, but, you know, if it's not now, when's it going to take place? You know what I mean? I feel like Devin's gaining popularity. Ryan Garcia, respect to him for taking this fight with Devin Haney, but, you know, I think Devin's going to win. So with him being a top dog, and the narrative between Shakur Stevenson and Tank, and the narrative between, you know, all those guys and Devin, it just makes for big fights. I think those fights definitely have to go down. Maybe Shakur faces the winner or loser of Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. I think either of those is a step in the right direction for Shakur. I think he just needs a big name, because after that De Los Santos fight, unfortunately, I feel like his stock went down. And Shakur even talked about the fact that he felt like he looked good in that fight, but the fans wouldn't agree with that. A lot of fans were not satisfied with Shakur's performance, and he knows that. And I think, you know, going back in his return fight, he's gonna have to tweak some things, and it's not easy. You know, I was talking about a rematch, but you have to also remember it's like you're getting in there with someone who can crack. You know, I'm referring to De Los Santos. So I would like to see Shakur in a more stylistic friendly matchup for him, just to display his boxing ability. And there are fighters that are better than De Los Santos. He's just too, I don't like that fight for Shakur. I think it was low reward and high risk for him. So I'm not too high on Shakur fighting big punchers with not a lot of skill. I'd rather see him against those you know, those high level IQ guys like Tank, guys like Devin, Haney, and maybe even Teofimo Lopez. I think those are good fights for him. But those guys can crack too. I would say that Devin's on the latter end. But who knows, maybe he goes in there, stops Ryan Garcia, makes a statement, proves all of us wrong that, you know, he does have that you know, thumb. He does have the ability to crack. Because, you know, Ryan Garcia is like saying stuff like Devin Haney couldn't crack an egg if he wanted to. So it's just like, there's a lot of trash talk on both sides. I'd argue that Ryan Garcia has more power than Devin, but on Saturday night, I think the truth will come out that, you know, Devin has just entered a different realm. He's just on another level now. Ryan Garcia has been very distracted, acting out of character, stuff along those lines, the social media antics. I can't decipher what's real and what's fake with Ryan Garcia. I wish him the best, but I think he has a tall task ahead of him on Saturday against a very credible opponent and a difficult stylistic matchup with Devin Haney. But I think it should be a big fight for the sport of boxing, but as well as, you know, the actual fighters at 35 and 40. I anticipate, you know, some of those mega fights for the best to be fighting the best in the near future, because we've kind of been missing those big fights. I feel like lightweight at 135, a lot more big fights were supposed to happen, like throw Lomachenko in there. Devin, when he was still at 35, you have Ryan Garcia, and I said Tank, yeah, Shakur, all those guys, T.O., those guys should have been fighting each other at 35, and I don't know what the holdup was. Obviously, there's, for the most part, it's money and promotions, but like, we've seen the blueprint for how a big fight gets made. It's when fighters put their pride aside for the greater good of boxing. That's one thing I'll give credit to Ryan Garcia for doing, is that, you know, he takes all the stipulations and he's willing to take the shorter end of the stick to push the sport of boxing. You know, he still makes a lot of money, but he still, you know, has the ability to put his pride aside to make big fights happen. And I think, you know, he could potentially get that Tank rematch. It could be big again, but he'd have to beat Devin Haney. If he doesn't beat Devin, I don't see how he could possibly earn that shot. But he definitely has a way of promoting himself. It was just interesting to hear Shakur Stevenson and Tank go at it. These guys went from friends to foe real quick, but I kind of knew that was going to happen eventually with, you know, them being around the same weight class, in the same weight class right now, and, you know, they're becoming rivals in the weight class, and they're on a collision course now. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Tank has a theory that Shakur was faking his hand injury in his most recent fight against Edwin De Los Santos. But thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.